What is going on, my hustle?
Woo! Woo! Baby! Yes! Yes! Cheers. In a game of butt cheeks, old middle school football team could scheme a better offense than Adam Gase.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, now we're going to start a series I've been wanting to do, which is we're going to go through the eliminated of each team that gets eliminated from the Stanley Cup Playoffs in this these upcoming rounds. I thought that'd be interesting to kind of give my thoughts, see what I think each team can do, what I think they should do. We're going to start with the first team eliminated, Nashville. Now, I'm a Colorado fan. I was tempted to wear an Avalanche jersey to kind of like, you know, be like, rub in the face. But you know what? I'll be nice. I'll just wear the hat and the blue hoodie. I'll just be nice with that. But let's talk about the Nashville Predators to start. Now, Nashville, to be fair, they are a good team. They have talent on that team. No one's denying that they don't have talent. Their goaltending was absolutely fantastic this year. Jussi Saros is probably going to be a Vezina finalist. He is a Vezina finalist. Not to mention, they look like they have a great new young upcoming backup to him in Connor Ingram. And they still have the prospect they drafted in the top 10, Yaroslav Askarov. He's finally coming over to North America. So, the future is very bright in Nashville. But I don't think anyone would really look at this team, the way they're constructed, and say, yeah, this team looks like a cup contender. Would we really qualify Nashville in the realm of, say, Colorado, Tampa, even like Florida, Toronto? Maybe we can maybe throw Toronto in there. This year, like Calgary, even Minnesota. Would we even throw them in that category? No. Nashville has good talents, but aside from maybe Roman Josi, they don't really have what anyone would consider an elite forward talent or an elite back-end talent aside from Roman Josi. Now, Roman Josi is a fantastic player. He's a finalist for the Norris this year. He had a great year this year. Didn't look so hot in the playoffs, but he looked great this year. But Nashville needs more than that. They need a lot of depth on that back end because it's clear that without that first pairing, their back end can be rather weak. Just look at Colorado's defense, for example. Yes, they have Cale Makar. He's a superstar. He's a Norris finalist this year himself. But they also have players like Devon Taves, Sam Girard, Eric Johnson, Bowen Byram, even some guys who play nice roles on the team like freaking Jack Johnson, of all people. He fit in nicely with Colorado's defensive system this year. Ryan Murray looked pretty good. Curtis McDermott, of all people, even had a part to play. Colorado had each guy play their part in their system. Aside from Josi, could you really name that good a complementary piece? Do they have their version of a Devon Taves or even a Sam Girard? Which is ironic because they had Sam Girard, then they traded him to the Avalanche. But they don't really have that key cornerstone defensive piece to put alongside Josi. Look at their forward core. Matt Duchene and Philip Forsberg. They're the two main highlights. Good players. Very good players. Duchene, however, I don't know if we consider him an elite one. Trust me, as an Avalanche fan, we know that Duchene is not an elite talent. Top 9 forward, yes. Heart and soul of a team like Nathan McKinnon or Artemi Panarin or even an Austin Matthews. No. Steven Stamkos, definitely not. Definitely not a Steven Stamkos. So, you have that. And Forsberg, great complimentary piece. Great complimentary piece. But he's a UFA this summer, an unrestricted free agent. So, he might leave. I think it's a good chance he may have priced himself out of Nashville's bidding. And I saw a funny tweet that somebody said, Nashville brought Forsberg back just to be swept by Colorado. And that's funny. We can look at it that way and be like, yeah, they kind of did. But at the same time, it's unfortunately true. Forsberg really didn't have that big an impact. He had one goal in the entire playoffs, and it happened in Game 4. They were talking about it the entire time on the broadcast. Forsberg doesn't have a point. When is Forsberg going to get a point? Did he have an assist yet? A goal? Anything. Forsberg was invisible for the majority of the playoffs. And Jeannot, promising young player. Not what you can. I don't know if you would consider him putting him on the top line though yet. They tried, but I don't know if Jeannot's ready for that yet. The Avalanche, the Predators. If you're a Nashville fan, there are two ways to look at this series. You could be more positive about it, and you could say, hey, they had a really good year. They were white hot at times, kind of tapered off toward the end, and when they kind of fell off, Colorado, Minnesota, and St. Louis kind of got on their hot streaks, and it never let up. But hey, you know what? Good year. We just ran into a team that's better than us. Comeback will be better next year. Or you can look at it as, we're not good enough. They're not ready to win a Stanley Cup. They're not built to win a Stanley Cup. And if you want to win a Stanley Cup, you got to go through teams like Colorado to do it. They're not ready. That is definitely a way to look at the Nashville Predators. So that's a lead to the title of this video. Rebuild, retool. What should Nashville do? In terms of a retool, you could probably, I don't know how much you can add. Goaltending-wise, you look pretty set. Defense, I would add some scoring depth. Yes, they can defend and they can back check, but in my opinion, their defense cost them greatly in games 3 and 2. Game 2, Connor Ingram, phenomenal. As an Avalanche fan, I was getting frustrated because this kid stopped everything that the Avalanche threw at him. He was amazing out there, and they could not get him any help. They got outshot heavily by Colorado in the third period and in overtime. They were getting outshot 17-3 at one point. Do you understand how bad that is? You're getting outshot 17-3. So, Nashville, they end up losing in overtime off of a bad defensive rebound. Connor Ingram stops 3 good shots in a row. Kilmakar gets the rebound, finally gets it past him on the 53rd shot. Nashville had 2 shots in overtime. Kemper stops them both. One of them was really good. Then Kilmakar sneaks one by. And now Nashville's been eliminated in Game 3. They looked solid. They were being really effective at some point, and they were getting some good rebounds off Ingram. And then they did the worst thing you could possibly do against the Colorado Avalanche. They started taking penalties. Colorado won 6-3 in that game. They went 4 for 5 on their power play. 4 for 5. Do you understand how ridiculous that is? Nashville just kept taking penalties. They kept putting themselves in a bad situation. They couldn't kill anything, and their power play was awful in this series. They couldn't. Their power play. They went 8 for 13. They went. That was Colorado's penalty kill. 8 for 13. They went 5 for 13. 13 power plays, and they could only produce 5 goals, and none of them, by the way, were the game-tying goal. Nashville's special teams have been awful for the better part of, 2-3 years now? Let's go through their history. 16-17, they're phenomenal. They get to the Stanley Cup final. Pekka Rinne was playing out of his mind. They looked fantastic, and they fell to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who were on their way to back-to-back cups. Okay, they lost to Sidney Crosby and the Penguins. No shame in that, right? No shame in that. 17-18. President's Trophy winner. Ironically, you're playing the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. Colorado doesn't have their starting goaltender, and they're without some of their best defenders. Naturally, Nashville beats them in 6. Even though Colorado gave everything they had to Nashville. Then they fall to Winnipeg, who would go on to the conference final and get knocked out by Vegas. But they fall to Winnipeg, because Connor Hellebuyck was fantastic. The cracks started to seep. They started to show. Then 2018-19, not quite as strong. They end up running into the Dallas Stars, who struggle on offense. That's kind of been the Stars' play style. They struggle on offense. They would lean on their goaltending, which would be, at that point, it was Ben Bishop. So they run into Dallas. Dallas knocks them out, and it was notorious how bad their penalty penalty kill and their power play was. Power play, a donut the entire series. They threw up a donut against Dallas. And then on the penalty kill, let the Stars have all the goals that they can handle. It was ridiculous. So they get knocked out by Dallas. And then 1920, COVID pause. Okay, go into the qualifying round. And in another big bout of irony, they face the Colorado Avalanche. They face future Avalanche goaltender Darcy Kemper, who at that time was on the Coyotes, who is now the goaltender for the Avalanche. They face Darcy Kemper. Kemper plays fantastic. One of his best series to date. Nashville tries. They can't score on Darcy Kemper. Their power play is once again terrible, but they can't kill any Arizona penalties. And Arizona will later get crushed by Colorado. They lose to Arizona, and they get knocked out in the qualifying round. Knocked out 3-1 in a best of 5. It was humiliating. And then they looked awful to start the 2021 season, the shortened COVID year. They looked awful to start the year. It was bad. And they barely squeak into the playoffs. They fight, try to get a leg up. Doesn't work. They get in. They manage to get their way in, get knocked out in the first round. And some people will say, well, it's not that big a deal, you know, but I think that really fooled Nashville into thinking they were closer than they were. Pekka Rinne retires after that year. Yusei Saros, who's been his protege for a while, takes the reins. By that point, they had fired Peter Laviolette. They'd replaced him with John Hines. It feels like Nashville's running in place at this point. What's a common theme I've been listing? Defensive deficiencies and faltering at the worst times, and special teams. Their special teams have been terrible. They struggle with the penalty kill, and they struggle at keeping any pressure on their opponent with a power play. It's not hard. Just watch them play. Look at their. You can watch them play, and you can see against Colorado they struggled to get many efficient power play shots. Big reason why they went 5 for 13 in power plays. They really struggled on that penalty kill, and Game 3 showed it. Game 4, Avalanche just needed 2 power plays, score on both of them. It's Colorado. And I think it's clear that Nashville is not good enough. They're not built to win a cup the way they're built. They really struggle after those top 6 forwards. Once you get along the third line, fourth line, second pairing, third pairing, and Nashville's struggles start to show. They got by around earlier in the year. They looked really good. They looked like they were leading in first place. And around January, they started to show more of their flaws. They start cooling down. And then Colorado's on their hot streak. Minnesota's winning more games. St. Louis is grinding out wins. February, it's a sweep. Colorado, Minnesota, St. Louis, they take the top of the Central, and it never changed. Colorado grabbed first in the Central in February, and it was kind of sealed from that point. Nashville did have a chance, though, to get a more favorable matchup. And a chance to play Calgary. They would have been the 7th seed. All they had to do was beat the actively tanking Arizona Coyotes. 4-0. And they blow that game. Last game of the year, 4-0. They blow it. They have to go face the Avalanche. I'm not saying they would have beat Calgary, but it would have been a much more favorable matchup for the Nashville Predators had they gotten to play Calgary. Instead, they get to play the Avalanche and get knocked out. Now, some people, again, based on what I said, the ways you can look at it, you could say, well, anybody who was going to play Colorado would have get knocked out in the first round. It's not exactly fair to just say Nashville's bad. Or you can say Nashville shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. They put themselves there. Neither, in my opinion, are wrong. Colorado is a favorite to win the Cup. I don't think many, and they're on a mission this year. I think many people thought, if you're in their way before the second or third round, you are the unfortunate sacrificial lamb. But that's just not the way it went. I think Nashville can't rebuild, though. They can't. They have too many bad contracts. Duchesne, renaissance year this year. Fantastic. Do you expect it to continue? Maybe. But who are you going to put alongside him? And you probably lose Forsberg this year unless you're willing to pay him a ton, which, then what do you do about the rest of the roster? They probably dump David Riddick this year because they look like they have their next goalie to play alongside Saros and Connor Ingram. But what do they do with the roster beyond that? If I were to ask any Nashville fan, do you think this team is built to win a Stanley Cup? You look at the way that Colorado's built their roster, that Florida built their roster. I know Florida's kind of on the brink right now, but that's another discussion. The way Tampa built their roster. The way that Pittsburgh built their roster. The way that the Blues built their roster when they won their Stanley Cup. The way that Boston built their rosters when they went to the Cup final. Do you really think that they're built for this? You really think they're ready to beat those teams? I say no. Can they retool? Sure, but what can they get? There will be a lot of free agents this year, but how many of them are going to want to play in Nashville? How many of them might just go ring chasing with some of the big boys in the East or join some of the guns in the West? When there are a lot more younger teams like Minnesota with the exciting play of Kirill Kaprizov. You have St. Louis, who somehow refuses to die. They keep making a renaissance. They refuse to go away. Calgary looks white hot right now. Even some exciting teams like the LA Kings, they're rebuilding. Some teams might say, ooh, LA, that's interesting. And of course it's Los Angeles. Why not go join the Kings? Nashville is just up against so much stiff competition. And if certain more rebuilds keep taking strides in the West, then Nashville's going to get buried. Should they retool? They could try. But is it going to be good enough? I don't think so. Unless they get really lucky and one big free agent decides to land. But the NHL does show it's not about the biggest name you land in free agency. It's about your depth along the way. And it's about your structure. Big names can get you through the regular season. Structure wins in the playoffs. And Nashville doesn't have that. Would I consider a coaching change? I'd look at it. Barry Trotz just became available. Barry Trotz might fit well with this team's style. They want to be more physical. Barry Trotz could fit fine with that. I would like Barry Trotz if I was a Nashville fan. Can they rebuild? They should consider it, but they can't. Nashville's in a tough spot. Let me know what you guys think. What should the Predators do? Do they rebuild? Do they retool? Do they maybe just try to run it back and just say, maybe we will get lucky and we don't have to play a team like Colorado in the next round? Maybe next time we'll get, maybe we'll get luckier. We'll get like maybe St. Louis or Edmonton, or maybe we get the LA Kings. A more favorable matchup. Who knows? Anyways, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to look out for the next team that'll be eliminated. I got my eye on a certain team from New York, and we'll see how tonight's game goes. That'd be an interesting video. Anyway, that's it for me. Be sure to look out for more videos in the future. That's it for me. See you guys later.